Part 7. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 61. At this moment, the arrow is on the string and he has to launch it. His plan has already begun, and naturally it is impossible to stop because of Sul Yang. What's more, how could a mere Sul Yang have an impact on his plan? Then Ren Changshen took action decisively, and instantly, all the puppets in the entire Tao Tower collectively rioted. Without saying a word, a group of puppets rushed in front of Sul Yang, raised their hands and launched a fatal attack towards Sul Yang. At this scene, Tan Kinja on the side also noticed something was wrong. Sul Yang, get out of the way, these people are sometimes weird. While reminding him, Tan Kinja immediately took action, stepped in front of Sul Yang, waved his sleeves and robes, and swept away all the puppets in front of him. But there are too many puppets in the tower, and even if Tan Kinja takes action, it is impossible to clean them all instantly. Then, facing the puppets approaching again, Tan Kinja had no choice but to take action again to sweep away the puppets. But at this critical moment, Tan Kinja's vision suddenly went dark, and immediately she felt her body was weak and weak. All kinds of distracting thoughts appeared in her mind, and low murmurs rang in her ears, making people want to go crazy. Is this the breeding of inner demons? The charming body rioted. Tan Kinja understood the key in an instant, and her heart sank immediately. When Mei Ti was rioting, she didn't have much fighting power at all, but with so many puppets in front of her, some of her powers had reached their innate peak. How could Sul Yang stop him? There was no time to think about why the Mei body suddenly rioted. Tan Kinja immediately tried to control the Mei body, but it was of no use at all. No matter what, Tan Kinja could not have guessed that the reason why her charming body suddenly rioted was actually because of the formation specially blessed by Ren Changshen in this tower. When the formation was activated, it would interfere with her charming body and make her it cannot be controlled. Now, Tan Kinja could only watch the puppets approaching her, and some of them even took action against her, but she had no strength to resist. But at this critical moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of her, blocking all the attacks. Everyone get out of here! Sul Yang shouted low, a gentleman hides his edge, and Ming Hai Giwen launched, but it was still difficult to resist the huge number of attacks. In the blink of an eye, there were several more wounds on his body, and he was covered in blood. But despite this, he still stood guard in front of Tan Kinja, fighting to the death with the puppet, never retreating even a step. Looking at Sul Yang's bloody back, Tan Kinja felt vaguely familiar. But I just can't remember where I saw it. The blurry figure standing in front of him, waiting desperately, the familiar scene of being surrounded and killed. All these vague things make Tan Kinja more and more irritable. After a bloody battle, Sul Yang tried his best and finally killed some of the puppets surrounding him. Sul Yang is indeed powerful, but these puppets in front of him have many innate realm beings. After going berserk, their strength is even more powerful. Although there has not yet been a puppet that has surpassed the innate realm, it is still a bit difficult to deal with the 8th level of Sul Yang's Zhuzang realm. Coupled with this huge number, ordinary people with 3 or 4 levels of innate ability may fall here if they are not careful. Sul Yang can deal with it alone, which is enough to prove his strength. Call. Sul Yang panted slightly, his eyes swept across the crowd of puppets that gathered in front of him again, and his expression became slightly darker. Why did these puppets go berserk? Sul Yang did not intend to investigate now. Something was obviously wrong with Tan Kinja, and these puppets, whether in terms of quantity or high-end combat power, were beyond the ability of Sul Yang to handle alone. The most urgent task is how to escape. After thinking for a moment, Sul Yang turned around decisively, without caring about his injuries, hugged Tan Kinja's slender and soft waist, turned around and ran away, planning to escape with Tan Kinja. You, let me go. However, Tan Kinja struggled hard and said bravely, "Suliang, put me down. I will naturally have a way to deal with these puppets." Snapped. Suliang slapped Tan Kinja on the butt, causing Tan Kinja to scream repeatedly. "Be honest." Suliang said, "Although I don't know what's wrong with you, in your current state, it's difficult to protect yourself, so don't try too hard." But Tan Kinja still didn't give up. "Then, put me down and I can walk by myself." Snapped. Faced with Tan Kinja's show-off, Suliang said nothing and slapped her again. "How dare you show off? You couldn't even move just now. How could you still have the strength to escape on your own?" Then I... Tan Kinja opened her mouth again, only to receive another slap from Suliang. Then, as long as Tan Kinja opened her mouth to show off, Suliang would slap her. Soon, Tan Kinja was beaten down and she lay obediently in Suliang's arms. Her body was limp and she seemed to have no strength to support her. There was also a blush on her cheeks. "Suliang, do you know how dangerous your current choice is?" Tan Kinja's slender hands held Suliang's clothes tightly. Tan Kinja's beautiful eyes were full of mist, and she spoke in a soft voice, "Among those puppets, the strongest one has an innate peak. After going berserk, even if his strength cannot reach it, Grandmaster, but it's not far behind. With your current strength in the Zhang realm, if you encounter those puppets, you will be crushed. Regardless of strength or speed, you are no match for those puppets. If you were alone, you might still have hope of leaving, but if you take me with you and you're a drag, you won't be able to escape at all." "So what?" Suliang asked calmly. It seemed that what Tan Kinja said had nothing to do with him. "So." Tan Kinja's voice was still gentle, "Suliang, there is no way for you to survive if you take me with you. The best choice is to put me down. With me stopping you, you still have the possibility of leaving alive. What are you thinking about?" Suliang was too lazy to pay attention to Tan Kinja's words. His expression became determined and his tone was extremely solemn. "There are things that can and cannot be done. I, Suliang, never have the word give up in my dictionary. I will never give up on anyone just because I am running for my life, and I will never stop resisting just because I am not my opponent. Suliang, you..." Listening to Suliang's words, Tan Kinja murmured in a low voice, "Stop talking and recover." Suliang interrupted her directly. However, facing the slightly stronger Suliang, Tan Kinja didn't even feel angry at all. Looking at Suliang's calm and resolute profile, Tan Kinja lost her mind again. The figure that was still vague in my mind before became increasingly clear at this moment. Ren Changsheng, who had arranged such a dangerous situation, would never have imagined that all his arrangements would invisibly serve as a wedding dress for others. Being guarded by Suliang with blood, and being led away again. Listening to the boy's words that he would never give up, Tan Kinja's relationship that had been locked up for many years had begun to fray. Feeling the rapidly beating heart and the warm feeling in her heart, Tan Kinja inadvertently let go of all her reserve. Now, Tan Kinja only felt that the figure running away with her arms attracted her more and more. Why not, just leave it like this? Anyway, it must be him, right? Rather than miss it again because of your own resistance, this time, it is better to hold it tightly in your hands and never leave any regrets. Thinking in her mind, an extremely bold idea appeared in Tan Kinja's mind. This thought appeared too sudden, but it was extremely natural, as if something I had missed in the past, I no longer wanted to miss at this time. Tan Kinja didn't feel any surprise or conflict. Looking at Suliang's side face, Tan Kinja's eyes gradually blurred, her cold look disappeared, and the Queen's majesty was no longer there. At this moment, Tan Kinja didn't want to deny, but couldn't deny that she was moved. At the same time, the young man's figure in the dream picture gradually completely matched the figure of Suliang in front of him in this world, and they were no longer indistinguishable from each other. Tan Kinja only felt a buzzing in her mind, and she couldn't bear it any longer. She hooked her delicate hands around Suliang's neck, raised her head and kissed him. The kiss came too suddenly, and the soft and gentle touch was so comfortable that Suliang threw himself into it without any thought of resisting. This kiss lasted forever until the sky and the earth changed color. In Tan Kinja's body, all the uncontrollable charming energy due to the riot of charming body took this opportunity to vent out. In just a moment, Tan Kinja's body became completely normal. The lips were separated, and a crystalline silk thread was connected, shining with a strange light. Tan Kinja, on the other hand, instantly regained her unparalleled graceful posture. As soon as she raised her hand, all the puppets in the Tao Tower were destroyed. "Let's go, Suliang, let's go out." Tan Kinja looked at Suliang again, her expression and eyes were much softer. Outside the Tao Tower, after the layout was completed, Ren Changsheng immediately planned to enter the Tao Tower and reap the fruits of his victory. This move is called a hero saving a beauty. Wasn't he planning so many things just to put Tan Kinja in danger so that he could appear in time to save the beauty and win her heart? The plan was seamless. However, before Ren Changsheng walked into the Tao Tower, he saw that the door of the Tao Tower suddenly opened. Immediately afterwards, Tan Kinja took Suliang and walked out slowly. At this moment, Ren Changsheng was dumbfounded. "How is this going? Aren't you already fully prepared? Normally, Suliang should be dead at this moment and Kinja should be in crisis. Is this script wrong?" The moment she walked out of the Tao Tower and saw Ren Changsheng, Tan Kinja immediately returned to her aloof appearance, with a majestic aura, a cold expression, and the posture of a queen. Tan Kinja looked at Ren Changsheng with a scrutinizing gaze and asked coldly, "Did you do what happened in the Tao Tower?" What Tao Tower? I don't know." Facing Tan Kinja's scrutinizing gaze, Ren Changsheng was obedient and did not dare to say anything at all. At this moment, he still had no idea what kind of changes had happened in the Tao Tower. Can only say, "The most miserable Torin stone hammer in history, can I still be a bull? My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator." Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 62. Volume 1 Chapter 74 The final simulation, hiding the front for 16 years, killing the immortal with one sword. Do not you know? After hearing Ren Changsheng's answer and looking at Ren Changsheng who was hesitating and not daring to say anything, Tan Kinja whispered to herself and did not ask any more questions. Subsequently, leaving Ren Changsheng alone outside the Taoist tower, Tan Kinja took Suliang and walked straight to Qin Benjiao's boudoir room, intending to send Suliang back. Pushing open the door and walking into the room, Qin Benjiao, who was practicing cultivation, saw Suliang, who was covered in blood and looked weak. He couldn't even walk back by himself and had to be sent back by his master. Qin Benjiao's beautiful face immediately panicked, and she hurriedly stepped forward and asked worriedly, "Master, what's wrong with Suliang?" Suliang replied with a smile on his face, "I'm fine, it's just a minor injury, don't worry." But Qin Benjiao didn't believe his words at all and just looked at Tan Kinja. Tan Kinja put Suliang on the bed and explained, "Something happened to the Tao Tower. Don't worry, he just lost strength. He looks a little miserable, but they are minor injuries. He can recover after a while." "Say it." Tan Kinja turned around and walked out of the room. "You should take good care of him. I will stay outside the door. If anything happens, just call me." Qin Benjiao nodded and sent Tan Kinja out. After closing the door, she turned to look at Suliang, only to see that Suliang on the bed had fallen asleep. And just then, in Suliang's sleepy consciousness, the voice of the system sounded again, "The 2-star Cao Thief has approved that within 1 month, the beautiful woman will let go of her elder-type restraint. The mission requirement has been achieved. The Sims, final stage, begins." Then, In a blur, without Suliang's consent, he had entered the dreamland of the Sims again. Time flies by, and in the blink of an eye, the bright smiling Shota Liang has grown up and become a handsome young man. But this handsome young man possesses an unabashed love for the most terrifying demon in the world. Someday. As usual, the demon Kinja taught Liang how to practice, but because Liang's talent was so poor that he could not understand it for a long time, in the end, Kinja had no choice but to teach him personally as usual. However, just in the middle of practice, Liang suddenly looked at Qingya and said seriously, "Sister, let's get married." Kinja was stunned for a moment, then her face darkened and she said coldly, "Nonsense, that's not how the joke is played." But she didn't expect that Liang was very serious and determined. "I'm not joking. If I miss someone as beautiful and gentle as my sister, wouldn't it be a lifetime regret?" You. Looking at the serious young man in front of her, Kinja felt very resistant in her heart. Without hesitation, she refused directly, "No." Immediately. After a moment of silence, he added, "Don't mention this again in the future. Stop thinking about this kind of thing. Say it." He turned around and left, leaving Liang alone in the training place. After refusing once, Tan Kinja thought that Liang would be hit and give up. But she underestimated Liang's love and determination. After his first confession, Liang began to confess his love to Kinja continuously. While eating, Liang suddenly confessed his love. During the chat, Liang confessed again. Day after day, Liang didn't seem to know what giving up was, and he never interrupted his confession to Qingya. And faced with the boy's confession, Kinja has always been resistant and refused. Only she was not such a heartless person. She didn't know how good that young man was to her, nor was she unmoved by it. But is someone like her, who is destined to destroy the world and is the biggest demon in the world, really worthy of him? That young man was as bright as the sun, seeming to light up the whole world, but her elegance was the greatest darkness in the world. Things that are in darkness are not worthy of sunlight. A boy as brilliant as him should be accompanied by an equally brilliant girl, right? If others knew about this, no one would believe it, but it was the truth. The devil Kinja is the one with the lowest self-esteem. She has always felt that she is not worthy of the young man who is the sunshine. Then, after being confessed once again, Kinja said to Liang, "I have already said that we should not have such delusional things in the future. You should focus on your cultivation now. Whether it is your talent or your cultivation, you are still very useless." After hearing this, Liang said helplessly, "Sister, I am very strong." But Kinja didn't believe it at all, and even said teasingly, "Are you very strong? If your cultivation can be considered strong, then wouldn't my sister be invincible in the world?" As winter turns to spring, peach blossoms are about to bloom all over the mountain, and the entire mountain peak is filled with the sweet smell of pink. This day, Liang came to Qingya and invited, "Sister, the peach blossoms are blooming, let's go and enjoy them together." Facing Liang's invitation, Qingya hesitated. If you really agreed to him, wouldn't it be a little more intimate to enjoy flowers with him? Does this count as giving him hope again? However, he had clearly made up his mind to reject him. But looking at the young man's expectant eyes, he couldn't say any words of rejection. Finally, Kinja still nodded and agreed, "Okay, let's go and enjoy the flowers together." Immediately, after driving Liang out of the room, Qingya carefully selected and dressed up. She had made up her mind. Taking advantage of this opportunity, I might as well say some cruel words to completely make this stubborn little brat give up, knowing that it is impossible between me and him. Although this is indeed cruel, it is a good thing for him and himself. Right? But Kinja, who had planned everything, didn't expect it. Whether on the road or in the peach blossom forest, even under the ambiguous atmosphere of pink and white peach blossoms, bathed in the warm sun, and filled with sweetness in the air, Liang still said nothing about the confession. "Look, sister, this peach blossom is actually white, which is different from the others." Liang took Qingya through the peach forest, just inviting her to enjoy the beautiful scenery all over the mountains and plains. "Liang, you..." Tan Qingya opened her mouth to ask something. But Liang didn't give her a chance at all. He pointed to the distance and said, "Sister, look over there. The peach blossoms there seem to be denser. Let's go and have a look." After that, he took Qingya's hand and walked towards the more lush place. Looking at the young man in front of him, feeling the hot temperature in the young man's hand, surrounded by peach blossoms, even Qingya felt lost for a moment. But what she didn't know was, under the beautiful scenery of this prosperous age, a dangerous and murderous intention has quietly arrived. Chapter 76, Hiding the Front for 16 years, burning his life to kill the immortal. In the peach blossom forest. Liang broke off a peach blossom and looked at Qingya. "Sister, come here." After Qingya came over, Liang pinned the peach blossom on Qingya's head. She frowned. Although Qingya didn't hate this feeling in her heart, she still wanted to pluck the peach blossom. Only because this was put on by Liang. Just because she couldn't accept any overtures or intimacy from the boy. Therefore, even if you like it very much, you cannot follow your own will. However, Liang looked at such elegance and said with a smile, "This flower is so beautiful. But if it weren't for being worn by my sister who is so perfect and beautiful, this flower would be just the most ordinary flower." After hearing Liang's words, Qingya lowered her hand that she had just raised. That's it. Anyway. You really like it, don't you? But right now. The sky suddenly darkened, and in just a moment, it was almost impossible to see. But in the dark sky, there was a little light flickering, gradually enlarging, almost filling the entire sky. That is Tianmen. Qingya looked up at the sky and whispered. There is a heavenly gate above the human world, and within the heavenly gate, there are immortals who are far more powerful than the human world. They can move mountains and conquer seas with just a thought. Every time a true immortal descends to earth, it is a huge disaster for the creatures on earth. But the heavenly gate will not be opened easily, unless every time a monk ascends, there are very few things that are worth opening the heavenly gate. So, why on earth did this heavenly gate open at this time? Qingya looked up at the sky, the light gradually dissipated, and soon, dozens of figures appeared in the sky. Sure enough, this is the gathering of true immortals on earth. After a rough count, 81 true immortals arrived. Why did they come? For some reason, looking at the true immortal in the sky, Qingya had a bad premonition in her heart. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 63. Really? At this time. On that day, the voice of the true immortal sounded, Qingya. Are you here to find yourself? Qingya's face darkened, and she took a step forward. Oh, am I so famous now? Even the immortals in the sky know my name. Qingya, with the destiny of destroying the world. The true immortal seemed to disdain Qingya and continued, if you had lived an ordinary life, we would not bother to pay attention to you, but you went against the will of heaven and fell into the devil's way. Since your cultivation, you have grown to the point where you must be eliminated. If you don't get rid of it, all heaven and earth will be destroyed by your hands. Sure enough, he came to kill himself. Qingya didn't have many surprises in her heart. She knew that she was destined to destroy the world and was the leader of the demon cult. No one in the world except that boy wanted to keep her alive. In fact, if it weren't for this young man, he would have died 10 years ago, wouldn't he? But she didn't expect that in the end, it would be the immortal who took action? You really think highly of yourself. Holding the weapon tightly in her hand, Kinja looked up at the sky with a cold expression. My fate is mine. If you say you want me to die, am I going to die? I, Kinja, want to try today. What kind of things are you, the so-called true immortals behind the Tianmen? Say it. He actually took the lead and used his methods to attack the true immortal. However, the power of a true immortal is far beyond what Kinja, a demon in this world, can resist. One strike. Kinja struggled to resist. Two strikes. The demon fell from the sky, blood spilled from his mouth, and he was already seriously injured and invincible. But even so, the immortal still refused to give in. He stretched out his hand to point at Kinja, and immediately took action again. Kinja could feel that she was absolutely unable to resist this blow. It seems that defeat is a foregone conclusion. But at this juncture, Kinja was unexpectedly calm. The first thing that came to her mind was the boy who folded the flower and put it on her head. Oops. These true immortals were cold and ruthless, and even they couldn't stop them, let alone Aliena's low cultivation level. Ailiang, was he affected by the battle just now? Is he still safe? As soon as she thought of this, Kinja's mind went blank, and her face instantly turned pale. Then, she suddenly raised her head, trying to find Ailiang. But at a glance, he saw that the young man who worried him was already standing in front of him. Ailiang, you go quickly. Regardless of anything else, Kinja said hurriedly, those immortals are here to find me. If you leave now, they won't take action against you. But Ailiang said helplessly, sister, I have always told you that I am strong, but my sister has never believed it. Ailiang, stop making trouble. At the critical moment of life and death, Kinja could no longer care about so many things. Looking at Ailiang who still didn't leave, she almost burst into tears. Please leave quickly. My sister is in danger, how can I leave alone? Ailiang looked up at the sky, with the same bright smile as yesterday. Isn't he an immortal? Let me show you to my sister. Gentlemen, Zhang Feng. Ailiang's innate talent and lack of understanding. The reason why he is like that is just to get closer to Qing Yat. A gentleman hides his edge and raises his sword for the sake of today. As soon as the sword was unsheathed, the sword light shone across the 9 states, and even the sky seemed to be split in half. At this moment, all the true immortals and heavenly gates were eclipsed in front of this sword. Just to make the whole hall of immortals lackluster. Ailiang is actually a truly talented swordsman, but he is willing to suffer 16 defeats for one person. You're just an immortal, but you dare to hurt my sister. With a smile on his face, Ailiang casually broke off the peach branches around him and threw them in the air. He used this as a ladder to climb up to the sky step by step. And with his footsteps, Ailiang's energy gradually burned out, and everything he gained was poured into the sword-raising technique, pushing this skill to its limit. The young man actually knew that even if he had been raising the sword for 16 years, it would still not be enough to face 81 true immortals. But it doesn't matter. I still have this life. This sword that burned up everything in Ailiang is enough to kill the heaven and the earth. It is the sword that kills immortals. Boy, do you know what you are doing? The true immortal shouted angrily in a deep voice. Of course I know. Ailiang drew his sword and charged straight at the immortal. As a witch, he could stand alone against the immortal. You want to kill my sister? Are you worthy? Today, I, Ailiang, will kill you so-called immortals. After that, with one strike of the sword, the immortal died. Clenching his fingers to ask the Tianmen, killing an immortal with one sword, even a true immortal in the sky would die in the face of this ultimate sword intent. Boy, you are looking for death. The remaining immortals were all furious, and they all took action, directing powerful attacks across the sky at Liang. However, Volume 1 # Chapter 75, a beautiful woman giving a hug in front of her apprentice. Liang did not dodge or dodge, no matter how the immortal attacked, he only responded with one sword. In an instant, the sword light in the sky shone, and the sharp artistic conception was felt very clearly even on the other side of the world. The skill of raising swords to the extreme was born, and he instantly crushed all the immortals. In just a moment, Liang killed 70% of the true immortals with one sword and one man. When the corpse of the immortal fell, the heaven and earth began to mourn, and rain of blood came to the world. All creatures on the earth felt the ultimate sorrow and couldn't help but burst into mourning. The remaining immortals were frightened by the sword light and forced back 3,000 feet, not daring to step forward. Liang stood in the air, arrogantly looking at the sky. Liang, dare to ask the immortals in the sky who dares to come down to earth. No one answered. There was silence between heaven and earth. This arrogant man of swordsmanship makes even immortals tremble with fear. Snort. Liang chuckled lightly, immortal, it's nothing more than that. From now on, any immortal who dares to descend to earth privately will be killed without mercy. If anyone is dissatisfied, ask me about the sword in my hand. The sword energy spreads across 30,000 miles, and the frost light of one sword chills 19 states. Liang burned everything with one man and one sword. In exchange, 70% of the true immortals died, and the remaining true immortals fled. From now on, the gate of heaven is closed, and no true immortal dares to descend to the earth. But Liang, because all his energy were burned out, there was no possibility of living anymore. If he is injured, no matter how serious his injury is, there will always be a way to treat him. But this overdraft method that burned up all the energy in the body, those things lost with the Zongheng sword light can never be made up for. After falling to the ground, Liang staggered, and he was exhausted and fell directly to the ground. Kinja hurriedly ran over and held Liang in her arms. Seeing the dying boy in her arms, she could no longer care about pretending to be cold. Her beautiful face was full of sadness. Liang, you. Kinja bit her lower lip tightly, full of words, but at this moment, she didn't know how to say them. Sister, you should smile more. Smiling makes you look good. Even in the face of death, Liang smiled as brightly as ever. Sister, I have always told you that I am strong. Now, do you believe it? Feeling the boy in her arms gradually losing body temperature and gradually slowing down her heartbeat, Kinja's throat was choked with sobs and she couldn't say a word, so she could only nod her head. Gradually, the witch's eyes were a little moist and her vision was hazy. Sure enough, this flower is just an ordinary flower. It's just because of having a sister that it becomes the most special flower. Reaching out and stroking the peach blossom on Kinja's head, Liang smiled happily. Don't say any more. At this moment, Kinja finally shed tears. It was at this moment that she finally understood what she meant. I am indeed an idiot. You obviously like him so much and want to be with him so much, but why are you still so hesitant and unwilling to face it? Not worthy of him. Does it matter? As long as he is true to his feelings, isn't it enough? Isn't it enough if we don't really love each other? Why do you have to wake up when everything is irreversible, leaving you with many regrets? Why couldn't I agree to him earlier? It must be very happy to be with Liang, right? Thinking in her heart, Kinja's whole heart was filled with regret, but time could not be turned back and everything could not be repeated, so this regret could not be vented. But at least, he has to let Liang understand his own feelings. Thinking in her heart, Kinja finally chose to be honest about her heart. She hugged Liang tightly, lowered her head, pressed her red lips on him, and kissed him deeply. Immediately, their lips parted, Kinja leaned close to Aoyang's ear and whispered, Aoyang, actually, sister, I have always liked you. So, Aoyang, will you survive? We haven't gotten married yet, we haven't watched the sun rise and set together yet, and there are still many, many things we haven't had time to do. So, don't go. But it's too late to confess now. Yeah. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 64. Finally, my sister agreed. I have no regrets in my life. After listening to Qingya's words, Liang's face showed that bright smile again. Then, this smile will be fixed here forever. As if time had stopped, Kinja sat there holding Liang, her eyes looking at the young man's bright smile. Liang, all this is my fault. Kinja said softly, I will make it up to you in the next life. When the time comes, even if you rush, you won't be able to drive away my sister. Say it. The fate of the world was shattered, and the bright light enveloped the two people in an instant. Qingya did not hesitate to bury this life and give up everything just to renew their relationship and reunite with Liang in the next life. Liang, my sister will not let you go in the next life. The dream was shattered and endless darkness enveloped Tan Kinja, who was guarding the door, and was suddenly awakened. What's going on? The scenes in the dream still remain in my mind, and I feel my throbbing heart. The blurry pictures in my mind before are all connected in series at this moment. In the previous life, Kinja personally taught Liang how to practice, and in this life, it was Tan Kinja who taught Liang. In his previous life, Liang stood in front of Qingya and killed the immortal with his sword. In this life, Liang protects her with blood and will never leave her. It turns out that the reason why I feel that the figure is familiar is because I have experienced everything with that person. Why couldn't I help but get close to Liang and tease him, even regardless of his identity? Why is her body so calm when she is with Liang? Why do I feel uncomfortable when I see Liang and his apprentice together? Just because of that unforgettable relationship in the past life. Tan Kinja suddenly realized that the mystery of her past and present life was completely solved at this moment. In the last life, Liang saved himself when he was young. He confessed to himself countless times, but refused because of his inferiority. But even so, in the end, in order to save himself, he still sacrificed his life. This is all what I owed him in my previous life. No wonder, I have to meet this enemy in this life. Looking at the closed door, water flowed in Tan Kinja's eyes. She understood that it would take her whole life to repay her debt to him. And just then, a figure approached from a distance and came directly to Tan Kinja. It was precisely because of the failure in the Dao Tower arrangement that he defeated his own sect leader, Chang Sheng. Arriving in front of Tan Kinja, Ren Changsheng asked, Kinja, did something unexpected happen in the Taoist Tower just now? Yes. Tan Kinja replied. Liang is injured. Ren Changsheng asked again. Small injury, nothing to worry about. Tan Kinja said. So, are you injured? Ren Changsheng looked concerned and finally asked the question he wanted to ask the most. I won't get hurt. Tan Kinja replied, her tone calm and calm. That's good. After hearing this, Ren Changsheng breathed a sigh of relief. But Ren Changsheng found that when Tan Kinja spoke to him, her tone was very calm. But that look made him even more frightened. Looking at Tan Kinja's beautiful face, Ren Changsheng saw that the expression was even more cold and unfamiliar than the one he had treated him before. In the past, although Tan Kinja treated him coldly, she also treated other people the same way. At any rate, she still felt cold. But at this moment, even though she was talking to Ren Changsheng, Tan Kinja's beautiful face was still so cold and emotionless. It's like treating a pebble on the roadside. Would anyone show any expression to an ordinary stone? That kind of unfamiliarity and aloof indifference is the most terrifying thing. This expression even made Ren Changshen himself feel trembling. The dream was shattered and the Sim's life ended. As he fell asleep, Suliang heard the sound of the system. In the previous life, she had a world-destroying destiny and became the biggest demon in the world. You, a sunny boy, a true swordsman pride, have been hiding your edge for her all your life. When she has low self-esteem and faces your active attack, it seems natural to refuse. But how can such a life be without regrets? The gate of heaven opens, and the true immortal comes to the world, just to kill her who is destined to destroy the world. You burn everything and kill the immortal with your sword, but in the end you cannot escape the fate of death. The devil finally confessed his feelings, but it was too late, so she broke her life just to renew her relationship with you and meet again in the next life. This simulation is completed. Congratulations to the host for activating the special achievement. I dare to ask the immortals in the sky who dares to come to this mortal world. Specially attack immortals and be crazy about love. Love will make you perform beyond your normal abilities. Immortals will tremble unconsciously when they see you. The achievement of special attack against immortals. Suliang fell into deep thought. It seemed that this achievement was very good, but are there really immortals in this world? If anything, this achievement is an advantage for him. As for the one who is crazy about love, Suliang is quite satisfied. This should be regarded as a way for him to briefly burst out his strength. At this time, the system's voice sounded again. Congratulations to the host, for breaking the wife's reserve. The wife's favor has soared, and she has successfully made her heart beat. You have been rewarded. The inheritance of supreme swordsmanship. The strongest swordsmanship inheritance in the world points directly to the essence of swordsmanship. You only need to understand 70% of it to surpass the strongest swordsman in the world. If you understand 80% of it, it is no longer a dream to kill an immortal with a sword. If you understand 100% of it, you will be a sword that will shine through the ages. God. His. The moment he heard the sound of the system, Suliang couldn't help but take a breath of air. This reward is too crazy. The inheritance of supreme swordsmanship. This is the strongest kendo inheritance. Listening to the introduction of the system, it seems that the upper limit of this inheritance has exceeded the strongest cultivation level in the world. After possessing it, I am afraid that my future swordsmanship talents will be fully maxed out. No matter how strong the swordsmanship is, I should be able to master it and even enhance it with just a few glances. It has to be said that in Suliang's opinion, this reward is much better than any increase in cultivation level or any skill treasure. Then, Suliang decisively accepted the reward. Moment. A bright light flashed through, and Suliang suddenly gained many insights on the way of swordsmanship. Recalling some of the swordsmanship he had seen before, things that were obscure before were now understood by him in an instant, and he could even see the flaws in them and make improvements. At the same time, a special force emerged from Suliang's body, integrating into his flesh and blood, meridians, bones, and internal organs. Just for a moment, Suliang's physique was completely sublimated and transformed into a sword body. This is the most suitable physique for sword practitioners. I don't know how many people dream of a physique, but in Suliang's case, it has become a bonus of the supreme swordsmanship inheritance, just to enable Suliang to better understand and practice sword moves. That's not all. Crack. There was a crisp and shattering sound, and the true energy in Suliang's body surged. In an instant, he broke through the innate barrier from the 8th level of building a treasure. But it doesn't stop there yet. The true energy in Suliang's body continued to surge, and he made breakthroughs one after another. It was not until he reached the 4th level of innateness that he became weak and could no longer stop. Although he was still in a coma, Suliang could still feel the condition of his body. Feeling the surging power in his body, Suliang quickly determined that at this time, he was far superior to his previous self in terms of quantity, quality, and physical strength. If he encounters a Tao Tower puppet riot again, he will probably be able to handle it with great ease at this time. And just then, congratulations to the host, for receiving the true hidden sword skill. Hide the sword for a lifetime and kill the immortal with the sword. Concentrate the sword moves and turn it into the sword to kill the immortal. Slay the immortal, one-time martial arts, one sword strike, the immortal dies. My girlfriend no longer has to worry that I will be stabbed to death by a hatchet. Hiss. Suliang took a breath of air again. This trick. Even those who have reached the highest level of cultivation cannot stop this sword, right? What a domineering life-saving trump card. Suliang was very satisfied after carefully calculating the rewards he had received. This time, it can be said that I have improved myself in all aspects. Cultivation, physique, understanding, and life-saving trump cards are all there. 2-star Cao Thief assessment, please read the next half-month to completely conquer this wife. I don't know if I'm a scumbag or not, but if you don't do it now, you can only be stupid. The system's voice sounded again. However, this time, Suliang had no intention of complaining. Recalling everything in The Sims, Suliang questioned, "Dog system, this Sims, is it really just a simulation? The Sims is so real, as if it really happened." After experiencing it, the impact was really profound. At this moment, Suliang has begun to doubt The Sims. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 65. But in response to Suliang's doubts, the system fell silent for the first time. After a while, the system voice sounded, "The host has insufficient permissions to answer." Permissions, not enough? Suliang fell into deep thought. After taking stock of this harvest, Suliang sobered up. "Suliang, you finally woke up." Seeing this, Qin Binjao was extremely surprised. Hearing the movement in the room, Tan Kinja couldn't bear it anymore, hurriedly opened the door, found Suliang's position, and walked over. Immediately, in front of his apprentice, Tan Kinja actually hugged Suliang directly. Some parts are not enough to read, 2-in-1, 4,000 words per page. Volume 1 #Chapter 76. After the fairy left, the beautiful sister boldly attacked. This hug seemed to span time and space, both intimate and passionate. Tan Kinja almost threw herself into Suliang's arms, hugged him tightly, with a faint smile on her face, and subconsciously rubbed herself into Suliang's arms. "See this?" Qin Binjao was stunned. What is going on?" "Master, she actually hugged my man in front of me, and why did she still get so close to me?" "Master, give it to me, that's my man." "Master, please explain to me what is going on." After hugging her for a while, Tan Kinja finally woke up. Letting go of Suliang, Tan Kinja half defended and half explained, "Suliang had saved my life before." Seeing that he was awake, my teacher was really excited. "I see." After hearing this, Qin Binjao immediately believed it. Seeing this, Suliang was quite speechless. My girlfriend is indeed a bit stupid, so she let Tan Kinja get away with it. But then, Tan Kinja made a bold request. Suliang was injured a little. "I want to check his body." "Yao, do you want to come with me?" This is also to ensure that he does not leave any hidden dangers. Hearing this, Qin Binjao always felt a little familiar. It was as if what he had done was reappearing before his eyes. But she didn't think too much and agreed, "Okay." Immediately, the two masters and apprentices joined forces and kept looking around Suliang's body. The two pairs of slender hands, each with its own merits, kept touching Suliang's body at the same time. Even in some places, clothes were even taken off. "I'm fine, please stop." This immediately aroused Suliang's resistance and dissatisfaction. However, Suliang's words were ignored by the two of them, completely useless. The two masters and disciples jointly observed him, raising and lowering his hands, and the extremely aggressive gaze wandered back and forth on his body. At this moment, Suliang felt extremely ashamed. I have no shame in living. After some examination, Suliang's body was fine. The biggest problem is that the true energy and strength are slightly overdrawn, but it only needs to be replenished through cultivation. This minor injury was not even worth using any medicine to treat. With a few days of training, he would recover very well. But even so. However, Tan Kinja still said to Qin Benjao, Yao go and get some elixirs. Although Suliang's situation is that it's okay not to use elixirs, but with elixirs, it will be faster and won't leave any traces, any hidden dangers. But in fact, she just wanted to use this excuse to send her apprentice away so that she could be alone with Suliang for a while. Qin Benjao had no doubt that he was there, and she even wanted to get some pills to help Suliang recover faster. Then, Qin Benjao nodded decisively and left the room. In this way, only Tan Kinja and Suliang were left in the room. But although Tan Kinja's purpose was indeed to stay alone with Suliang for a while, at this moment, both she and Suliang felt a little uncomfortable. Looking at each other's face, the scenes in the dream came to mind one by one. In the dream, the two people's passionate feelings and regretful ending gave rise to wonderful feelings, coupled with the previous experiences in the Tao Tower. All of this deeply affected the two of them, and for a while, they were unable to face each other calmly. Then, the atmosphere fell into awkward silence. But the silence only lasted for a moment. Suliang opened his mouth and explained frankly, I planned to explain this misunderstanding from the beginning, but my sister never gave me a chance. The reason why I mentioned the sect master before was not what my sister thought. Oh. Tan Kinja turned to look at Suliang, then why? Suliang said calmly, since the spiritual energy tide started, there have been people in the sect targeting me and trying to kill me. Judging from these events, that person must be a high-ranking member of the sect and an absolute master. There are not many people in the sect who meet this condition, but the sect leader is the one with the greatest suspicion. Therefore, I suspect that the sect leader is the murderer. He is definitely not as innocent as he appears. It stands to reason that Ren Changshen's image as a good old man has always been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Especially when he treats Tan Kinja, he is extremely considerate and caring. Not to mention that the two of them are still husband and wife, although it is only in name. Tan Kinja should doubt Suliang's words. But surprisingly, Tan Kinja did not deny it at all. Instead, she seriously promised Suliang, don't worry, I will pay more attention to Ren Changshen. Hearing this, Suliang breathed a sigh of relief. Tan Kinja's strength is far beyond that of this place, and even the powerful ones in the dragon transformation realm are easily suppressed by her. In this case, with her keeping an eye on Ren Changshen shouldn't be able to cause any trouble, right? Certainly. What made Suliang relax the most was Tan Kinja's performance. After just experiencing the simulated life, Tan Kinja hugged herself tightly when she came in. Later, she sent Qin Benjao away. If Suliang said he was not panicked, it would definitely be a lie. But until now, Tan Kinja has behaved relatively normally. If that's the case, it shouldn't be a big problem, right? But before Suliang could completely relax, he felt that Tan Kinja was approaching him and said, now that we've finished talking about business, it's time for us to talk about personal matters, right? Ding. Oops. Suliang felt his heart suddenly sink, it was over, it was all over, it was too early to relax. Who would have thought that Tan Kinja would be waiting for her here? Just look at how Tan Kinja dared to hug him in front of his girlfriend before. Now that he doesn't have his girlfriend, who knows what she can do to him? Sister, are you joking? Do we have anything private to discuss? Suliang also tried to save himself one last time. But Tan Kinja didn't give Suliang this chance at all. She slowly came to Suliang. Tan Kinja said calmly, when we were at the Tao Pagoda just now, do you still remember what you did to me? Hiss. Suliang took a breath of air. Remember, of course I remember. Although a sim life seems to have experienced countless time, the soft and elastic feel of Tan Kinja's upturned parts in the Tao Tower is so incredible that Suliang will never forget it. Immediately afterwards, Tan Kinja continued, as a younger brother, if you offend your sister like this, should I give you some punishment? While talking, Tan Kinja's expression was cold, her eyes were full of indifference, and her whole body was full of majesty and aura. She looked at Suliang condescendingly, with the posture of a cold and arrogant queen. But it was Tan Kinja's appearance that made Suliang even more uneasy. When I did it, I didn't think about the consequences, but now it seems that I don't know what Tan Kinja will do to me. And just when Suliang was worried, Tan Kinja leaned down, stretched out her slender hand, and struck Suliang on the forehead. Immediately afterwards, she whispered, don't take any risks in the future. Do you understand? Before Suliang could react, Tan Kinja leaned over and pressed down. The pair of proud peaks happened to be right on Suliang's face. They were extremely tight, with the ultimate elasticity and softness. In an instant, Suliang's entire face was filled with tightness. Just listen. Tan Kinja said, Humph, let you experience the pain of chest tightness and suffocation. This is the punishment my sister will give you. Suliang was given a dose of facial cleanser. Although he couldn't breathe, his expression was a little strange. Feel the amazing elasticity and softness of the proud peak. Even though there is a layer of fabric, the delicate, warm and soft feeling can still be clearly felt. Even the raised spring above the peak can be clearly felt. The delicate fragrance lingered on the tip of his nose, and his face was filled with the fragrance of milk. Suliang could only say, this feeling. It's really cool. Even my girlfriend can't give me this feeling, because my girlfriend is still growing and is far from reaching this scale. I just want to come back a few more times. So. It's said to be punishment, but in fact, it's a reward, right? After a while, Tan Kinja straightened up, silently picked up the towel on the side and wiped the sweat from Suliang's forehead. During this whole process, Tan Kinja treated Suliang softly and charmingly, and the coldness on her beautiful face could no longer be found, and she was full of tenderness and smiles. This melting iceberg queen looks more like a gentle little wife. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 66. I recall that when they first met, Tan Kinja treated Suliang like an eternal ice. Even though the two became familiar with each other later and often had some intimate behaviors, Tan Kinja was also cold, and often dominated her in various ways. Play. She is completely different from the little wife she looks like now. Maybe her changes were too great. So much so that Suliang, who was treated so softly and charmingly by her, felt very uncomfortable. A person who usually makes fun of him has become gentle and charming. Such a huge change would make a normal person feel very uncomfortable. The same goes for Suliang. After enjoying Tan Kinja's gentleness for a moment, Suliang said slightly uncomfortably, Sister, it's okay, it's okay. I'm fine. You'd better take a rest. However, Tan Kinja did not react to Suliang's words as she usually did, nor did she do anything to him. After a moment of silence, Tan Kinja said frankly in a low voice, Suliang, you know, I am indeed jealous and envious of your jealous, envious that she can be so close to you and be so unscrupulous with you as a close relative /. I just regret that I didn't meet you earlier, but let you be taken away by others. Ahem. Suliang was a little embarrassed, coughed slightly, and wanted to say something. But Tan Kinja didn't give him a chance to speak at all, but continued to say firmly, "But, Suliang, I will not give up." "Say it." He stood up and left very freely. "Don't leave. Make it clear first. What are you going to give up?" Suliang was very panicked and wanted to save her, so she said, "Now, isn't our sister-sister relationship good? But I didn't expect it." As soon as he finished speaking, Tan Kinja, who had just walked out, immediately turned back and approached Suliang. Immediately. He even leaned over Suliang. Whether it was the extremely close beautiful face or the pair of proud peaks attached to his body, they all gave Suliang a great sense of oppression. Sticking tightly to Suliang's body, while Suliang was still dazed, Tan Kinja leaned down and pressed her red lips against hers. It was a passionate kiss that lasted for several minutes. Shocked, and the soft and warm red lips felt so good, Suliang had no idea of resistance and allowed Tan Kinja to kiss her forcefully. After a long time, the lips parted. Tan Kinja raised her head, looked at the aftertaste and fond look on Suliang's face, and smiled contemptuously. "How do you feel about sister?" Hearing this, Suliang was speechless. Although Tan Kinja has left, the things she did and the words she said have always remained in Suliang's mind. From time to time, they will suddenly pop up and make people think. In order not to let himself think too much, Suliang took the elixir and took a short rest before starting to practice. Standing on the training ground, Suliang did not start practicing immediately, but instead summarized the previous gains. The reward after the end of the sim's life, not to mention the achievements, there is no way to practice and improve, and there are no immortals who can let him try. Therefore, the most important thing is the inheritance of the Supreme Sword. With the inheritance of the Supreme Sword Dao and the Sword Embryo Dao body, it can be said that even though Suliang has not practiced any swordsmanship at this moment, his understanding of swordsmanship is unparalleled in the entire world. With such talent and inheritance, it would be a waste not to practice swordsmanship. Then, Suliang put the focus of this training on the sword. After finding his girlfriend, Suliang asked for advice. "Benjao, can you teach me how to practice swordsmanship?" "Okay." Qin Benjao had no doubt that he was there. She was quite proficient in swordsmanship, so she naturally felt that she could teach her boyfriend. Then, under Qin Benjao's guidance, Suliang made rapid progress. From the very beginning of being a beginner in swordsmanship, to mastering the sword technique at your fingertips, to understanding the sword spirit, and even the sword intention of the sword technique. In just half a day's practice, Suliang was able to compete with most kendo prodigies. What it takes others countless years to learn, my own man can learn in just half a day. How talented and knowledgeable Suliang is in swordsmanship. Isn't this incredible? This extremely exaggerated speed really shocked Qin Benjao. With her mouth growing bigger, Qin Benjao said in disbelief, "Suliang, I remember you told me before that you are not good at swordsmanship, and I have never seen you use a sword. Were you always lying to me before?" In this regard, Suliang had nothing to say and just spread his hands. But in fact, he is also very innocent. There was no inheritance of the Supreme Sword Dao and the Sword Embryo Dao body before. He was indeed not good at swordsmanship. The cultivation of Junzi Zhangfeng was all done in a different way. During this half-day practice, after Suliang understood the sword energy, he was shocked to find that the sword energy he exerted would always be swallowed up by the returning energy of the underworld. Minghai Giwenjin's characteristic of swallowing the spiritual energy of all things is too powerful. The mere sword energy cannot be separated from Suliang's body by half a meter, and it will be swallowed up. No matter how Suliang tried, These two powers were just incompatible. What should I do? Volume 1 # Chapter 77 The master who took away the right to take care of the fairy cried. Suliang was very distressed. If the sword energy cannot be exerted, wouldn't the sword technique be of no use? You can't. When fighting in the future, you have to withstand the indiscriminate bombardment of other people's martial arts and rush to the enemy to fight at close range, right? This is too much of a disadvantage. What's more, most of the power of swordsmanship lies in sword energy. Without sword energy, no matter how exquisite your moves are, you won't be able to exert much power. No, you have to think of a way to change it. Thinking of this, Suliang stopped being impatient, sat down cross-legged, and began to think about the characteristics of Minghai Giwen Jin. Minghai Giwen Jin is powerful and inexplicable, but its essence is to draw on all things, absorb all qi and turn it into one's own use, bursting out with powerful power. But in fact, Minghai Giwen Jin is essentially nothingness and has nothing of its own. This means that any force can be compatible with it and exert its power, but it also means that no force can be compatible with it. In front of it, it cannot be cast at all. In this case, how about transforming the power of sword energy into the power of Minghai Giwen Jin? Suliang's heart suddenly burst out with strange ideas. If you use the Minghai Giwen Jin as a transit point to transform the spiritual energy into sword energy, and bear the mark of the Minghai Giwen Jin, you will not need to use your sword energy at all, and you can achieve perfect harmony between the two forces. Maybe, this will work. Thinking of this, Suliang immediately started experimenting with great excitement. Minghai Giwen Jin absorbed the spiritual energy, and then transformed it into sword energy. The spiritual energy evolved freely with the sword energy, and they were in common with each other. Then, he slashed out with a sword. In an instant, the sword light buzzed, exuding extreme sharpness. The sword hit the ground, and the tough ground was immediately cut open, revealing a deep ravine. Done. Suliang was very happy. Immediately afterwards, Suliang suddenly thought of something again, and once again transformed his spiritual energy into sword energy, and punched out. On top of the strong fist power, it surprisingly brought a bit of sharp sword energy, and bombarded the ground. After a tremor, a deep pit appeared on the hard ground, and in it, there were also ravines cut by the sword energy. If it hits someone, even if they are at the peak of their innate ability, they will probably not feel comfortable if they receive this punch. Even if the punch is blocked, it can't block the sharp sword energy attached to it at all. Sure enough. This time, Suliang was completely excited. Using Minghai Giwen Jin as a transfer station to absorb the spiritual energy and convert it into sword energy for use, all moves can be equipped with sharp sword energy. From now on, every move Suliang makes will be more lethal. Although this was just a small skill, it was this small skill that allowed Suliang to make a qualitative leap in combat power and reach the sky in one step. In Tan Kinja's boudoir. Holding Qingming in hand, Tan Kinja was rarely entangled. After the dream ended, Tan Kinja, who had had strange feelings towards Suliang but didn't know it, finally understood her feelings and was completely smitten. And before, she had made this clear to Suliang in her apprentice's room. But here comes a very tangled thing. After all, Suliang is his apprentice. Can he succeed? If you go ahead, it is a bit unbelievable no matter how you look at the man who stole the disciple from your master. But if not, Tan Kinja would be very reluctant. I obviously like it so much, why can't I take action? After thinking for a moment, Tan Kinja still couldn't decide, so she simply called her apprentice over and planned to have a long talk with him. In the boudoir. After some small talk, Tan Kinja secretly asked, Yao, do you think it's possible to pursue happiness as a teacher? Yao, the happiness I want to pursue as a teacher is your man. Of course, this cannot be said. But Tan Kinja didn't expect that her cute apprentice couldn't understand her temptation at all, and instead fell into deep doubts. Strange, master wants to pursue happiness, why should he discuss it with me? Although he is his master's disciple and his relationship is really close, just like mother and daughter, he is still just a master and a disciple and cannot always compare to a real mother and daughter. This kind of thing concerns master himself, so master can make his own decision. Could it be that she was stimulated by the fact that she and Sulang were too affectionate? Well, it's not impossible. For someone as cold as master, it must be difficult to make this decision, right? Therefore, as a disciple, I must encourage my master. Then Qin Benjao said, Master wants to pursue happiness. As a disciple, I will definitely support it with both hands. Oh. Tan Kinja blinked, you actually agree? Of course. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 67. Qin Benjao nodded matter-of-factly, and then advocated, Master, it's really time for you to enjoy life. Cultivation is only a part of life, but it can't be everything. You can't just focus on practicing. That would be boring. Word by word, Qin Benjao patiently enlightened her cold master. But she never thought that she was teaching her master how to conquer her own men. After seeing her apprentice off, Tan Kinja was no longer confused after some enlightenment from her apprentice. My apprentice is right. There is absolutely nothing wrong with pursuing your own happiness. If you fall in love with it, you have to take bold action. What about the man who is his apprentice? Anyway, I like him so much that even if he is his apprentice, I will snatch him away. Even if they can't get it, even if they are two masters and apprentices serving the same husband, they must never give up. As soon as she thought of this, Tan Kinja's mind began to have uncontrollable thoughts about a threesome. Moment. The pretty face of the cold and charming queen turned crimson, her eyes were moist and confused, her brows and eyes were full of charm, and she was a little shy in her heart. Of course she knew that what she did was a bit disgraceful. Even for a monk, it would be objectionable and unacceptable for a master to steal a man from his disciple, or even for a master and a disciple to serve the same husband. But when I think about the ending of the two of them in the previous life, because of their own hesitation and low self-esteem, they missed each other in this life and can only look forward to the next life. Now that she has another chance, Tan Kinja doesn't want to repeat the mistakes of her previous life. From then on, Tan Kinja, who had made up her mind, showed aggression beyond imagination. Right away, she took the initiative to take care of Sulyang. Not only did he take personal care of Sulyang, he even took the initiative to feed Sulyang during meals. This does not give Fairy the White Hair a chance to fulfill her responsibilities as a girlfriend. Looking at Tan Kinja, who was feeding her man one spoon after another, Qin Benjao pursed her lips and widened her eyes with tears in her eyes. She looked aggrieved and cried, Master, this is me. Man, I should be the one taking care of him, how could you do this? However, Tan Kinja retorted directly, this is my teacher's savior. My teacher takes care of my savior. So what? In one sentence, Tan Kinja lost her temper. I was really angry, but I couldn't refute what my master said, so I could only hug my aggrieved self tightly, huddled in the corner and cried violently while watching the intimacy between my master and my man. Happiness is all yours, I have nothing. Qin Benjao was almost crying. But at this moment, Tan Kinja suddenly suggested, look at how hopeless you are. That's all, I won't bully you as a teacher. Since I'm your man, you can take care of me together. Really? After hearing this, Qin Benjao immediately became happy again and threw herself directly into Tan Kinja's arms, hugging Tan Kinja without letting go. Thank you, master, he. Seeing his girlfriend's appearance, Suliang felt very speechless. Benjeo, please wake up. Isn't this a right that you should have? But why are you so happy when someone takes it away, cuts off a bit and gives it back to you, and you even want to thank them? Someone has stolen your house, and you still have to help them carry it into their car and say have a good trip. Looking up to the sky in despair, Suliang sighed helplessly. Why could such a cold fairy in his family be so stupid, my friend? But what should I do? It's completely hopeless. Ah! Tan Kinja chuckled lightly, touched Chin Benjeo's head and said. Okay, Benjeo, go and bring back some more rice. I see that Suliang is not full yet, so I asked you to feed him some more. Good. Chin Benjeo nodded happily, turned around and walked out. Soon, she came back with some food, and then watched helplessly as her master fed her man at home. After drinking and eating, she pressed Suliang on the bed. Tan Kinja said to Chin Benjeo, Yao, go get some towels. It's been a bit hot recently, and Suliang should be able to use them. Good. Chin Benjeo left happily, and soon came back with her things. Then she looked at her master, taking care of her man intimately and enthusiastically. Throughout the entire process, nothing was found wrong. Seeing this scene, Suliang had a headache. This silly girl of my own has completely lost her control, hasn't she? It was obvious that Tan Kinja was the one who did the work, and his girlfriend was just doing some errands, but she was so happy. Alas, there is no hope. But at the same time, Suliang also had a headache and didn't know how he would face Tan Kinja. This time in The Sims, this kind of dream experience has a really strong impact. This kind of hazy feeling, the simulation of experiencing everything completely as another person, even Suliang, who had already experienced it once, found it difficult to break away from it for a while. In addition, the relationship between myself and Tan Kinja, her sister, occupied a place in her life and heart. From this point of view, Cao Thief seems to be a natural. But this is my girlfriend's master. If he was really a thief, how sad would his girlfriend be? No, it can't be like this. For the sake of his girlfriend, he must not be a thief. Then, for the sake of his girlfriend, Suliang barely kept his remaining integrity. A total of 23,000 crazy words, 3,000 more than expected. Volume 1 Chapter 78 Fairy, your home has been stolen, and you still say thank you. After Suliang's body basically recovered, Tan Kinja made a proposal to give Suliang and Chin Benjeo double special training. To this, the two naturally readily agreed. Chin Benjeo's cultivation since childhood was basically based on Tan Kinja's teachings. Although he has become a master now, his strength is obviously not as good as that of his master. As for Suliang, he had just received a large number of rewards, and both his cultivation and martial arts skills had been qualitatively improved. Naturally, someone needs to teach. His girlfriend is indeed better than him, but after all, she is a little stronger and can't give much guidance. Based on this calculation, Tan Kinja is the most suitable. But under Tan Kinja's teachings, Suliang and Chin Benjeo were treated completely differently. It was a large-scale double standard scene. During combat training, Tan Kinja is very strict and serious with Chin Benjeo. Boom! He waved his sleeves casually and knocked Chin Benjeo away. Tan Kinja looked cold and her eyes were indifferent. I used too much force, and the true energy flow was wrong. You used a good move in a mess, and it didn't have the original power at all. Why, it's been so long since you've been a grandmaster of breakthrough, haven't you fully mastered your cultivation strength yet? Benjeo, this is the consequence of your love affair with Suliang's son and daughter. If this continues, your cultivation will become weaker and weaker. Let's see how you protect your own man. Master, I know I was wrong. Chin Benjeo got up from the ground and stood in front of Tan Kinja to admit her mistake. Tan Kinja has been so serious and strict when teaching her to practice since she was a child. There is no mistake in the martial arts moves. But the effect of such training is indeed surprisingly good. Qin Benjao has long been used to it. Not to mention, Qin Benjao really believed that it was her fault, and she had no confidence to argue with her master. It's okay to know you were wrong. Tan Kinja nodded, her expression softened. Go and take a rest, you should be tired. My teacher taught you, think about it carefully and think about how to practice. You should know that I don't mean to be harsh on you, but you have really slacked off in your recent practice. I also think it's for your own good. You must understand that even if you are a grandmaster, you still have flaws. Don't think that your talent is unparalleled because you are a breakthrough grandmaster. Yes, master. Qin Benjao nodded honestly and stepped aside to rest. And this time, Sul Yang. Tan Kinja looked at Sul Yang, who was eating melon and watching a show. It's your turn, come up. Okay, okay. Sul Yang nodded and walked up. Immediately afterwards, the two didn't say much, and the training began. Sul Yang punched Tan Kinja, with no reservations about that powerful force. The fist was fierce and struck with devastating power. The sharp sword energy attached to it could break even boulders. However, faced with such a punch, Tan Kinja took it very easily, and then punched Sul Yang, knocking Sul Yang to the ground. Punch straight out, are you afraid that your opponent won't be able to guess your thoughts? As she spoke, Tan Kinja raised her jade feet, stepped on her body, and looked down at Sul Yang. This is your punishment. Today, I trample on your dignity, but tomorrow, it will be the enemy who does this. Immediately afterwards, Sul Yang stood up and the two started training again. But soon, Sul Yang made Tan Kinja dissatisfied again. Get down on the floor and do push-ups. Tan Kinja said coldly, seeing Sul Yang do as he was told and lie down obediently, and then she sat up herself and put heavy pressure on Sul Yang. This is your punishment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 68. Tan Kinja's plump jade legs were raised and dangling in front of Sul Yang, and her small jade feet were dangling in a perfect arc. That's not all. Tan Kinja's treatment of Sul Yang seemed to be harsher and even worse than Qin Benjao's. If someone is slightly satisfied, they will be punished. Trampling on dignity and imposing heavy pressure are just the tip of the iceberg. So much so. Qin Benjao felt a little unbearable and pleaded, Master, Sul Yang's cultivation level is still low, and his training time is not long. Some mistakes are normal. Master, please don't be so harsh on him. But Tan Kinja didn't listen to Qin Benjao at all. In fact, Sul Yang didn't refute anything. Only because this punishment seems harsh, but no matter how you think about it, it feels more like welfare. Some jade feet were stepping on her body, some were sitting on her back, her plump jade legs and delicate jade feet were dangling in front of her. Even if I don't have any special hobbies, having such close contact with such a mature and beautiful woman cannot be punishment no matter how I think about it. But, however, Tan Kinja always maintained a cold and charming attitude, and the coldness on her beautiful face could hardly be removed. Sul Yang couldn't see any clues at all. And during this training, Tan Kinja didn't know why, but suddenly said to Sul Yang, from now on, I plan to give you special training. Sul Yang and Qin Benjao both blinked, a little confused. Particularly tough? What is it? More harsh training? But I didn't expect it. Tan Kinja said, Sul Yang, you should be a little self-conscious. You are too popular. At the previous celebrity banquet of hundreds of sects, even if it was the first time we met, the beauties of all sects spontaneously gathered around you. So as a result, you have encountered too many temptations, especially beauty. I think it's necessary to train you specifically on this, so as to prevent you from making any wrong decisions one day. After hearing this, Suliang immediately protested, I don't think it's necessary. I'm just fine like this. I will never be seduced by beauty. But Tan Kinja didn't listen to Suliang's words at all. Instead, she was extremely calm and said to Qin Benjao, Yao perform a show. Yes, master. Qin Benjao agreed immediately, covering half of her face with her sleeves. Her eyes were moist and misty, and her eyebrows were full of charm. She quietly winked at Suliang, and her half-concealed charming charm was vividly performed by the silver-haired fairy. Although he saw this perfect face every day, and even saw it even more charming and alluring, Suliang was still distracted and was instantly fascinated. But soon, Suliang came back to his senses and argued, this doesn't mean anything. It can only mean that my girlfriend is pretty. How can such a perfect fairy be able to resist? But there are not many people with such a face in this world. Yeah, Suliang praised me. So, does Suliang like his appearance so much? Upon hearing Suliang's words, Qin Benjao's pretty face immediately turned red, and her heart was filled with sweetness. But despite this, she still did not forget to remind her master, that's right, master, what Suliang said makes sense. Besides, I have that kind of relationship with Suliang. I wish Suliang liked me more. Puff. Tan Kinja almost couldn't help but spray out. She never expected that she would be so caught off guard that she would be tortured by these two people. No, we can't just let this matter go. After looking at her apprentice and then at Suliang, Tan Kinja made a decision instantly. Since my disciple Suliang has reason to defend himself, then I will do it myself. Let's see what else Suliang has to say. Yao, please step back and let me have a try. Tan Kinja said calmly. Hearing this, Qin Benjao blinked, but because she had great trust in her master, and she seemed to think that the master's special training for her men was necessary, she had no doubts in her heart. But Suliang had a bad feeling in his heart. Then I saw it. When Tan Kinja came to Suliang, all the coldness on her beautiful face disappeared, replaced by a charming charm. With a faint smile at the corner of her mouth, Tan Kinja's eyebrows were full of tenderness, her fragrant tongue spit out, licking her soft red lips, her slender hand stretched out, pinched Suliang's chin. Brother, come here, are you going to play at my sister's house? Speaking softly, Tan Kinja's voice could no longer find the cold majesty, but it was full of charm. Just listening to this voice made people feel overwhelmed. This beautiful woman, who was already well familiar, performed a variety of amorous performances for Suliang and Qin Benjao on the spot. Tan Kinja's very rare charming posture was so beautiful that even Suliang couldn't help but lose consciousness for a moment, and his eyes were a little straight. See this. Qin Benjao immediately looked like she had drank dozens of jars of vinegar. She pursed her lips, widened her beautiful eyes, and looked at Suliang angrily. Suliang, how could you do this? Ahem. Suliang coughed twice in embarrassment and didn't know how to defend himself. It's really hard to resist the charm of a mature and beautiful woman. As long as a normal person is this, he shouldn't be able to resist it, right? Can you blame yourself? And this time, Tan Kinja on the side has returned to normal, and pointed out the problem mercilessly. I have noticed it before and found that Suliang's knowledge is too shallow. He has never seen the vast world and faced temptation. When the time comes, it's naturally hard to resist. So, if he goes out, he may be abducted easily. Qin Benjao on the side was still angry, but she nodded in agreement, fully recognizing her master's words. So, Qin Benjao added, Yao, as your master, I naturally don't want to see you in pain and sadness, so I will help your man develop his resistance. Now, do you understand? Hearing this, Qin Benjao continued to nod. Master is so kind to me. As for Suliang's protest? Except for Sul Yang, no one cares anymore. Thus, a new round of training aimed at training Sul Yang's resistance began. In the room, Sul Yang stood in the open space, with Tan Kinja right in front of him. The two were silent for a moment. Tan Kinja suddenly took the initiative to step forward, threw herself into Sul Yang's arms, and threw herself into Sul Yang's arms. Immediately, a slender hand stretched out and held Sul Yang's neck very skillfully. The next moment, his whole body was pressed against Sul Yang's body. The pair of proud peaks on his chest were squeezed tightly. Under the action of the amazing elasticity and softness, the two of them fit together tightly without any gaps. Exist. It's not over yet. Just when Sul Yang thought this was the limit, Tan Kinja actually raised her plump legs again and kept rubbing against Sul Yang's body. Every move is captivating and touching, making people unable to help but be tempted. Feeling the smooth and soft feeling rubbing back and forth on your body, and the warm smelling nephrite in your arms, the fiery temperature squeezed Sul Yang tightly, as if it was about to melt him in, and waves of fragrance lingered on the tip of your nose. This moment, Sul Yang felt like he couldn't stand it anymore. To be honest, Tan Kinja is a rare beauty in the world, but now she is so proactive in attacking, showing a passion that is completely different from the ancient iceberg. Sul Yang felt, let alone himself, there is probably no one in this world. Withstand it? Even Qin Benjao on the side couldn't help but turn over the vinegar factory when she saw her master and her man being so close. With pursed lips, Qin Benjao widened her eyes, looking aggrieved, and said with tears in her eyes, "Master, that's enough. Sulang is my disciple's man. Are you going too far by doing this? A little. Even if this person is his master and there is a legitimate reason, Qin Benjao does not want to see her man so close to others. Weevu, that place in Sulang's arms belongs to me, Qin Benjao. Master, please leave quickly." But Tan Kinja warned, "Yao, you have to understand that I am training your men as a teacher, and it is for the good of you too. You don't want to hope that your man will be abducted once he goes out, right?" Faced with Tan Kinja's instructions, Qin Benjao was very puzzled, but, "Master, why can't I do such an intimate thing myself?" Hearing this, Tan Kinja turned back and glanced at Qin Benjao. Her eyes were meaningful and thought-provoking. "Yao, you are boyfriend and girlfriend. When you get married in the future, you will be a real couple and a family. If this is the case, he is no longer interested in you, is it still possible?" Tan Kinja's words contain extremely rich information. But Qin Benjao understood it immediately. "So, is that so?" In order to prevent Sulang from losing interest in him, the master sacrificed himself for others. For his own sake, the master forced himself to be so close to Sulang. The master already has a husband and has such a cold personality. Now, being so close to Sulang must make her feel uncomfortable, right? Well, master really sacrificed too much for himself. Master is so kind to me. If that's the case, then what reason do you have to be unhappy anymore? After thinking about it, Qin Benjao was so moved that she said nothing more, hid aside and endured it silently. He watched helplessly as his master teased his own man, but said nothing. Halfway through training, during the intermission, Sulyang came to Qin Benjao and reminded him intentionally, "Ahem, Benjao, tell me, what your master did to me just now was too intimate or too much? Even if it's for the good of my apprentice, you wouldn't do it to this extent, right? If there is no ulterior motive, even your master would definitely not be able to stand it." Volume 1 Chapter 79 The Special Punishment of a Beautiful Woman, Witnessed by a Fairy. Both the words and the words are reminding my stupid girlfriend that your master has ulterior motives for your man. However, Qin Benjao trusted her master so much that she could not discover the truth at all, and even defended Tan Kinja in front of Sulyang. Listening to his girlfriend's defense, Suliang was helpless. This little fool is really hopeless. Your man is about to be snatched away, and you don't even notice. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 69. Another training session begins. When she was close to Suliang, Tan Kinja was extremely sinister. She bit her soft red lips and joked close to Suliang's ear, "Brother, in front of my girlfriend, I am so close to my girlfriend's master. Isn't it exciting to do this?" "No." Suliang immediately denied it without even thinking about it. Tan Kinja didn't say much, and her slender jade fingers kept wandering around Suliang's body, teasing and playing with it. Feeling that Suliang's body was constantly trembling due to his teasing, and even a certain part showed signs of unsheathing the sword, Tan Kinja smiled. She discovered that Suliang obviously had feelings for her. It's just that he just doesn't admit it. But it doesn't matter, I have plenty of ways to make him admit it. And feeling Tan Kinja playing with him, Suliang's face was filled with despair. Being treated like this by a beautiful mature woman, she couldn't resist, and her body still had feelings. Suliang felt that he had been completely ruined. After the training, Tan Kinja felt a little embarrassed looking at Suliang's expression of doubt in life and hopelessness. "It seems that you have gone too far?" Although Suliang does have feelings for him, after all, he has not admitted it yet, and he should have some scruples in his heart. It is indeed difficult for him to accept his using such methods, right? If that's the case, then just apologize to him. After making the decision, Tan Kinja planned to go to Suliang and apologize. However, but she didn't expect that her apprentice had already taken a step ahead of her and borrowed Suliang personally. "Suliang, give me a hug." Qin Benjao directly gave Suliang a loving hug, patted Suliang's head, and said softly, "It must be very hard for Suliang to cooperate with Master in practicing like this, right?" "I'm sorry, Suliang, please be patient. This is also for the future of both of us." Comforting Suliang softly, Qin Benjao hugged him tightly, as if she wanted to relieve Suliang's so-called hardship. Listening to his girlfriend's words, Suliang's whole body went numb. How could he not know that Tan Kinja's purpose was impure from the beginning, perhaps to prevent him from being abducted by others, but most people's thoughts must be to die in one way or another with him. I have to say that it is really difficult for a mature and beautiful woman like Tan Kinja to resist her, even more difficult than her girlfriend at that time. Several times, Suliang felt that he couldn't bear it anymore, but he still endured it for the sake of his girlfriend. But unfortunately, these words cannot be told to this stupid girlfriend of mine. Well. Suliang sighed, feeling really miserable that he couldn't express. As for Qin Benjao's words, even Tan Kinja's cheeks felt hot and a bit of a blush spread. When I think about the fact that I have used very serious reasons to touch the man who is my apprentice, using all kinds of temptations and taking advantage, but my apprentice is still being deceived by me. She felt a strong sense of betrayal. As a master, Tan Kinja's own reserve made her feel guilty. But Suliang is his. For the sake of his love, even if his opponent is his disciple, how can he give in? While practicing, Tan Kinja took Suliang's words to heart and started investigating Ren Changsheng, the leader of Tiandao sect. Hiding in the dark, he observed Ren Changsheng. Get up early, have breakfast, practice, have lunch, practice, take care of yourself on time, practice again in the evening, and then rest. The daily routine that Ren Changsheng repeated every day seemed to be very ordinary. However, in Tan Kinja's eyes, this is the biggest problem. Ren Changsheng's daily actions seemed to be calculated and orderly. He always appears in the most suitable place at the most suitable time to complete all seemingly meaningless things. Even including when to care about Tan Kinja and where to encounter Tan Kinja, Ren Changsheng arranged everything clearly and accurately. All of this made Tan Kinja feel that Ren Changsheng was not as honest and good-hearted as he seemed on the surface. After getting her answer, Tan Kinja stopped investigating Ren Changsheng and returned to her boudoir to find Sul Yang. In Tan Kinja's boudoir. After telling Sul Yang the results of his investigation, Tan Kinja said, although many of the things Ren Changsheng did have unclear purposes, there is always a sense of calculation and layout, and the purpose is impure. It seems that he is the one targeting you. Sul Yang was not surprised by this. He had already locked the target and was sure that it was Ren Changsheng. After thinking about it, Sul Yang said, we still have to think of a way, once and for all, to test him out. If we guard against thieves for 1,000 days, there will always be oversights. Indeed it should be so. Tan Kinja nodded. Immediately, the two began to discuss solutions. After thinking for a moment, Sul Yang said, perhaps, I can create a scene where I am alone to induce him to take action. But, if you do this, you will be in danger, right? Tan Kinja said as she quietly approached Sul Yang, even if I'm waiting for an opportunity to take action, if there is any accident, you alone can't stop him. You have to take some risks. Sul Yang didn't mind this at all. But that's it? But he felt that Tan Kinja was completely close to him. And that hot, soft body was always rubbing against him, intentionally or unintentionally, constantly teasing him. In an instant, Sul Yang's body stiffened. As if she noticed Sul Yang's change, or perhaps because she was too close to Sul Yang, Tan Kinja's delicate body froze for a moment. Then, at this moment, both of them felt a little uncomfortable. But it only took a moment for Tan Kinja to move again. Her soft and delicate body kept leaning against Sul Yang, rubbing against him, and continuing to tease Sul Yang. Feeling the smooth and soft touch, Sul Yang tried his best to restrain himself, but seeing that Tan Kinja had no intention of stopping, he had no choice but to say, sister, please respect yourself. You are my girlfriend's master. Isn't this right? Isn't it a little inappropriate? But I didn't expect it. Sul Yang's words directly aroused Tan Kinja's dissatisfaction. Snort. On the surface, I am indeed your girlfriend's master, but privately, I am your sister. Without thinking, the mature and beautiful woman began to tame the boy again. Pinching Sul Yang's chin with her slender jade fingers, Tan Kinja had a smile on her lips. Why, you already call me sister. Is it wrong for me to be more intimate with you? Is there anything wrong? Sul Yang was speechless. It's logically correct, but aren't you being too intimate? How can any sister think about being a knight for her brother all day long? But before Sul Yang could say anything, Tan Kinja touched Sul Yang's chest and gently pushed Sul Yang away. Immediately, a pair of plump and beautiful legs rested on Sul Yang's body. Snort. Tan Kinja snorted, what you just said made my sister unhappy. As punishment, sister wants you to give her a massage. But Sul Yang deliberately refused. But seeing the snow-white plump beautiful legs resting on his body, displayed in front of him without any defense, Sul Yang couldn't resist at all. Of course, it seems that he doesn't really want to resist. Okay, I'm scared of you. Sul Yang sighed helplessly. Since he couldn't resist, he could only enjoy it. So, he decisively said, okay, let's treat it as a reward for my sister. Said. Sul Yang put his hands on these plump and beautiful legs and helped massage them, feeling the soft and smooth feel. It was wrapped in amazing elasticity, but it was still soft and beautiful. It was so beautiful that people couldn't put it down. This feeling can last a lifetime. But just then, Master, are you here? Qin Benjao's voice suddenly appeared outside the door. Immediately afterwards, the door suddenly opened, and Qin Benjao followed closely and walked in. At one glance, I saw the scene in the room, and I was stunned. See this. Tan Qinja and Suliang were both nervous. It's over, the two of them were having fun here, but so quickly, they were caught by the real owner? Benjao, Yao, listen to my explanation. Looking at Qin Benjao, who was still in a daze, Suliang and Tan Qinja were extremely nervous. It seemed that Qin Benjao could turn black at any time and kill the two of them directly. After all, my master and my man, the two closest people to me, hide in a deserted corner, kissing each other, making my head green. No matter who sees this kind of thing, I am afraid that they will not be able to do it. Accept it? But the two of them didn't expect it. After a brief moment of sluggishness, Qin Benjao pouted and said with some dissatisfaction, "Master, if you want someone to massage you, just ask me. How can you manipulate other men?" Looking at this angry look, there is quite a feeling of resentment. Her reaction stunned Suliang and Tan Qinja. Speechless, Suliang fell into deep doubt. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 70. How did my cold, silver-haired fairy girlfriend become so stupid? The same was true for Tan Qinja. She couldn't help but start to think about whether there was something wrong with her education of Qin Benjao. Otherwise, how could his extremely intelligent disciple become so stupid? But the two looked at each other and saw a hint of happiness in each other's eyes. Fortunately, the silver-haired fairy is stupid, otherwise, today's scene would not have ended. Hee hee, hee hee. Tan Qinja laughed dryly, that's true. This is my teacher's negligence. Master still has me. As Qin Benjao said this, she came up behind Tan Qinja and started to help her master by squeezing her shoulders and legs. She looked considerate and filial. Gradually, Tan Qinja also put aside the awkward feeling of joy before and began to enjoy the filial piety of her apprentice. Even a trace of bad taste began to arise in her heart again. Looking at Suliang, Tan Qinja said calmly, "Suliang, please come and give me a shoulder massage." "Are you kidding me, madam? Are you not afraid of being discovered? You were almost discovered by your apprentice just now, and now you dare to do something so exciting?" Suliang didn't want to do it and rejected her directly. However, Tan Qinja had no intention of letting Suliang go. "Won't you come?" Tan Qinja whispered, with a dangerous light in her eyes. Immediately, snapped. He slapped Qin Benjao's erection, which was already beginning to take shape, without saying a word, just looking at Suliang. But the meaning is already very clear. If you don't come, then I will have to punish my lover. Anyway, as long as you don't agree, I will play with your girlfriend. Let's see if you answer or not. Suliang immediately understood what Tan Qinja meant. Looking at his girlfriend who was suffering crazily under Tan Qinja's clutches, Suliang had no choice at all. Okay. For the sake of his girlfriend, Suliang humiliated and agreed, walked up behind Tan Qinja, and massaged her shoulders. Looking down from his angle, Tan Qinja's proud peak is vaguely visible, which can be regarded as something to enjoy. Then, regardless of whether it was true or false, at this moment, these three people presented a harmonious scene. In the fairy boudoir. On the bed, after a long absence of dual cultivation, the silver-haired fairy's skin was a deep red. Lying in the arms of her boyfriend, Qin Benjao's cheeks were flushed, her eyebrows were full of charm, her eyes were hazy, and her face still had a happy smile after reaching the top. This soft and charming look makes people want to do it again. At this moment, Suliang held his soft and delicate fairy in his arms and chatted with his girlfriend, "Benjao, have you ever felt that your master might be interested in me?" How can it be? Qin Benjao didn't believe it at all, and analyzed confidently, Master is so cool and elegant, even I, as a disciple, will not get too close to him, and I will not let them get close to others at all. Opportunities, even for those big shots, Master doesn't make excuses. Based on my understanding of Master, Master must be wholeheartedly seeking the truth, and it is impossible for him to have such thoughts. Even the sect master, although he and his master are married, the master still doesn't look at him. How could such a master like my little boyfriend? Ha, it seems that your understanding of your master is not clear enough. Suliang looked at his girlfriend who was chatting with a headache. Benjao, you are so ignorant, are you really okay? After thinking about it, Suliang still wanted to explain it again, but, I think. Qin Benjao didn't give him a chance to explain, so she interrupted him and joked, Suliang, if you have the ability to conquer Master, then I can't agree to it. It's very fulfilling to have Master call me sister. Qin Benjao looked at her boyfriend with a cute look on her face, but what she said was extremely sinister. But she never expected it. If she was just joking, her boyfriend actually took it seriously. Volume 1 Chapter 80 Sulang, you must know how to respect yourself. Now that you say so. Suliang touched his chin and thought carefully, then, next time, I will let her call you sister. Okay, high five. Qin Benjao still thought it was a joke, so she simply replied with a smile. Good. Suliang nodded, and the two high-fived each other. As a result, such an outrageous decision was finalized in just a few words between the two of them. And immediately. But Qin Benjao suddenly turned over, pressed Suliang directly under her, and turned over to become the queen. Looking at her boyfriend condescendingly, Qin Benjao imitated her master's appearance, with a cool and luxurious look, and that aloof look that made people want to kneel down and lick him. Hey, Sulang, it's time to go to bed. Qin Benjao's voice was cold and majestic. Yes, your lady queen. Suliang subconsciously replied, then immediately turned over and pressed the noble queen down. At this moment, Suliang felt full of conquest. If this bed wasn't enough to get acquainted with, I'd probably have to change to another one in the middle of the night. The training came to an end for the time being, and Qin Benjao and Suliang had a rare rest time. Then, in the fairy boudoir, Qin Benjao suggested, Sulang, let's go to the nearby Tianyuan city to relax. Okay. Suliang nodded, then I'll prepare the carriage. No carriage. Qin Benjao pulled Suliang and walked directly outside the house, we can just use the sword to fly. Flying with a sword? Suliang was a little confused. Although he did have the inheritance of supreme swordsmanship, he had not yet been exposed to sword flying. Can't Sulang? Qin Benjao smiled and said, let me show it to Sulang. Immediately. Qin Benjao threw the sword out, and under the control of his true energy, the long sword flew in the air, as if commanded by his arm, agile and elegant. Immediately. Qin Benjao stood up, held up by the small long sword, flying in mid-air. After a while, the display was completed. Qin Benjao stood in front of Suliang, come, Sulang, I will teach you. You are so talented in swordsmanship, you can definitely learn it quickly. But in fact, Suliang already understood that the sword was flying far away. Isn't it just that the true energy is like silk, integrated into the long sword, and controlled? But, as expected, it would be best to fly with my sword with my girlfriend. Think about it, if you want to carry two people on such a narrow long sword, they must be close to each other. Then, Suliang decisively failed. No matter what, he would never be able to learn how to fly with a sword. In desperation, Qin Benjao had no choice but to say, okay, you better follow me, I will take you there. Qin Benjao's words played into Suliang's heart, so Suliang immediately agreed. Immediately. Suliang gently stood on his girlfriend's sword, hugged the silver-haired fairy's waist, and pressed his whole body against his girlfriend's body. Qin Benjao was very natural and snuggled into her boyfriend's arms. She placed her delicate hand on Suliang's hand and held it tightly with a faint smile on her face. But the loving look between the two made Tan Kinja, who was watching from the side, feel extremely sad. It felt like I had eaten hundreds of kilograms of lemons, I couldn't help it. She had already made up her mind to rob her apprentice, how could she still watch her apprentice show affection with her sweetheart? Then Tan Kinja said decisively, Yao my teacher happens to be going to Tianyuan City, can you give me a ride? Hearing this, Qin Benjao was a little confused, Master, Suliang and I are not in a carriage, how can we give you a ride? That'll do. Tan Kinja said, standing on the sword openly, right behind Suliang. However, this time, she kept some distance from Suliang and looked very serious. After standing firm, Tan Kinja said, Yao let's go. Okay, okay. Qin Benjao nodded. With the strength and quantity of her true energy, it was no problem for her to fly with her sword and carry 3 people. Then, after Qin Benjao prepared for a moment, she immediately grasped the sword formula and drove the sword to fly into the sky. But just after setting off, Tan Kinja immediately revealed her true colors. She was pressed behind Suliang. Her pair of proud peaks and soft and delicate body were pressed tightly against Suliang. In front of him was his girlfriend, but in the back was a mature and beautiful woman, his girlfriend's master. Suliang was caught in the middle, with cheese sandwiched between his 2 sides, so that he didn't dare to move at all and was oppressed. But